Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 45 of Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. I am your host, Professor Jeremy Vilmur. Joining us now, the star of the show, Bobby Blaze. What's happening, Bobby?
So she says, for my next sexual fantasy, I'm just thinking. And I'm like, what the fuck does she want to do next? Stick a fucking foot up my ass? I don't know, but I'm sitting there going like, what the fuck? I mean, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting there with my dick in my hand. I don't even know anymore. Are we recording it, Jeremy?
Yeah, we've been recording for several minutes now.
Yeah, hey, man, it's good to be here. I was just talking about this. Never mind. I didn't know we were recording. So anyway, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. You got your dick in your hand. I don't know what's next. I just say, what are you going to do at that point, you know? Anyway, yeah, hey, it's good to be here with the Professor Jeremy Vilmur, and I'm Bobby Blaze, and I don't know anything other than that. We're going to have a good fucking podcast today because episode 45, important dates in pro wrestling, Jeremy.
Goddamn. Bobby, real quick, I don't want to overshare. I recently had a young lady over to my apartment for the first time.
Oh, okay.
And she was kind of just poking around through some shit and, different places. And she goes in the closet where right now I don't really have a place to display a couple things. I've got a picture of you with your face split open at Sunday Bloody Sunday. And my copy of the NWA title belt. And she looks at me and she goes, what kind of kinky shit are you into?
Let's see, that's what I'd say. What are you going to do at that point? You got a fucking leather belt and a guy with a fucking busted up head. What does she think?
I don't know.
She's ready to get the fuck out of there, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Or stay.
Yeah, one of the two.
Happily stay. Because if they like you.
Exactly. Women will do damn near anything if they like you.
That's it. That's it, man.
No, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Bobby. We are here barely keeping our shit together for episode 45, when we're going to cover 10 important dates in pro wrestling history. One of the things that Bobby and I run into when we are researching topics for our shows is that when you search wrestling history, all you get is WWE shit. Wrestling is bigger than the WWE, but today we're going to cover a lot of the WWE's history.
Yes.
So we've got a little egg on our face.
Yeah. You got any shout-outs or anything before we get started, Jeremy?
Again, just to all our regular listeners, our new listeners, everybody out there, we really appreciate your support so much. And I'm not going to start naming names because I'll leave somebody out, and, I don't want to piss Adam off again. So
there you go. Yeah, I've just got one. I'm going to give a shout-out to the Wide Men Can't Jump. Tim and Nate reached out. They got a really good, the Wide Man Can't Jump podcast. Give them a listen if you can. They talk a lot about the NBA. They also do a freestyle, free-form type podcast every once in a while. I've been on it a few times. We're trying to work out a deal where, and it's just kind of been a timing thing. They really support our show. I appreciate that. And also Nate's been trying to get me in touch with, it's already been done. We just can't settle on a date. We're going to do a shoot interview of Dan Severn and myself over on their podcast.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, that's been in the works for a while. We've all been busy. The contact's been made, but that's just a quick shout out. And hopefully maybe something off of that can come over and bleed into our podcast. Tim sent me a real nice message concerning that, and they want to support our show a little bit. So I told them I'd just mention it to you, and I just mentioned it to you. So that's my big shout out. And also thank you to all the great listeners we have out there and the great fans we have out there.
Yeah, absolutely. The guys over at Wide Men Can't Jump have been really supportive of us. Matter of fact, Nate does our show closing for us.
Yes.
Also, yeah, if you guys are listening to this and you haven't seen Bobby's matches against Dan Severn, get over to YouTube and fucking check them out. They're pretty fucking outstanding. You guys, that almost looks like it was 3/4 a shoot match.
The first one was about 3/4 of a shoot match.
Yeah.
That's all I could do is stay away from him and keep him off of me. His mind was still in fucking octagon.
Yeah. Well, it shows too, because you guys you even feel each other out like it's a UFC style fight more than a wrestling match.
Thank you. I'm glad you got that. And any great fan will get that. Any wrestling fan, don't have to be a great fan, just any wrestling fan will understand, oh yeah, they're fucking working in there. They're wrestling.
Yeah.
They're getting after it. So thank you.
Yeah, it was a great match. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Bobby, you guys did a hell of a job. I'm really looking forward when you make sure I know when this interview happens, because I definitely want to check that out. That's good. I
sure will. Yeah. So anyway, that's appreciate that support, guys. Appreciate it very much. That's my only shout out I wanted to do. before we get started.
Well, let's pay some bills real quick then.
Yep,
and then,
do that.
We'll get started. So, guys, this show is sponsored by Bobby's Books. You know, Bobby is a former pro wrestler, but he's also an author. Probably more importantly
Yes.
these days. Yeah. And right now you can get 2 of his books on Amazon, and you can also help out the show by buying them through these links that I'm going to throw at you now. tinyurl.com/blazebook1. This will take you to his book, Pin Me, Pay Me. This is your first book out of a series of 2, basically, that have been released so far.
Yes,
and
sir.
then if you go to tinyurl.com/blazebook2, you get his next book, which is I Kicked That Onto the Education of a Wrestler. Great behind-the-scenes stories about a guy whose passion was 100% pro wrestling. Even fucked off a career in teaching to go be a pro wrestler.
Well, what are you going to do?
Well, that's the thing. The heart wants what the heart wants, you know?
Yeah, actually, I had 2 people this week tell me they've read my books here in town, and I'm surprised anyone in Ashland's read the fucking books, to be honest with you, because I just don't get a lot of feedback locally. I get a lot of other feedback through social media, which mostly is on Twitter. You can follow me at Twitter, and this isn't a cheap plug, but I'm going to throw it in there. Me at Bobby Blaze 744, Jeremy at the Geekish Cast on Twitter, and also our joint account, Bell to Bell Blaze. Those are on Twitter. But I had a young lady this morning while I was having coffee who I used to work with years ago, and we've spoken several times in the last few years, just in passing. And this morning she asked me how my writing was going, because I've been working on some other things, and she said, "Did I ever tell you I read your first book and it was actually really good?" And then she told me some other, and I was like, "Oh, you read it. Thank you for reading it. Thank you for telling me that." So anytime, and I had a guy, Jim, I was riding a bike and the guy at the gym told me, he walked up to me. I hadn't seen him for a while. He's about your age, Jeremy. Mm-hmm. I used to, work in a school system for a while, as mentioned, and he come up to me and started talking to me. I hadn't seen him. Said, "Hey, I read your book, man." And he said his neighbor gave it to him to read, and his neighbor actually was a guy I went to school with and graduated with. So I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Tell him hey, and I'm glad you read my book, no matter how you got it. But here's the way you can get it for you or your loved one or someone who you care about. Just go to one of those, help sponsor the show, and go to one of those fucking tinyurls, .com blazebook1 or tinyurl.com/blazebook2 and get one, and hopefully you enjoy it. And don't forget to leave a review, man. Leave a review for our podcast. Leave a review for my books. Just let us know how we're doing. We like to hear that kind of feedback, man. I know I do. And I tell people that leave me a review, all reviews are appreciated. I appreciate a fair and honest review. Mm-hmm. All reviews are appreciated. Of course, 4-star, 5-star, that's great. But if you feel like this is a 2-star or a 3-star book, leave me a 3-star. Just be honest with you. When I've had one review removed, and it just said, basically, it said, "Bobby Blaze sucks." Well, that's not a book review.
That is not.
I may suck. That may be true.
Has nothing to do with the book.
Exactly. And Amazon kindly removed that because it was not a book review. But, Pin Me, Pay Me has over 102 reviews. And there's a couple. You can learn so much from a 2 or a 3-star review. But I had a guy leave a review that was 3 stars. And this was early on. And it's not someone I know. And I read the review and I thought, man, I would buy this book in a heartbeat because his review was so kind. So I said, let me see what other stuff he's reviewed. He had reviewed 4 other products, and each of those products was a 3-star review out of the 4. Other than my book, he had 5 reviews, and one of them was for a Black & Decker blender. And I'm thinking, that's top of the line shit. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But when I read the review on that, he gave it 3 stars, but the review was like, shit, I want to run out and buy this blender. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't take it real personally. He left me a 3-star review. This person just leaves good, solid, honest reviews, but to him, you better be a damn good whatever to get a 4 or 5 out of them.
Yeah.
So you can learn so much from a 3-star review or a 2-star review, as long as it's fair and honest. If you like our podcast and people have given us 5 stars, that's great. If you think it's 4 because Bobby gets on our rambles about fucking reviews, leave a 4. I still appreciate it. And that's that. Let's get on with the fucking show.
All right. That's enough of that.
God damn.
All right, Bobby. So this week we are doing 10 important dates from pro wrestling history. Now, some of these aren't going to be dates. I mean, some of them are kind of lost to antiquity. 10, we'll start with this one. The formation of the National Wrestling Alliance in 1948.
Yes.
Almost all wrestling was independent from each other. There were no officially recognized world champions or anything. The NWA came along and changed that. Founders originally were Pinky George, Al Haft, Tony Stetcher, Harry Light, Orville Brown, Sam Muchnick, and Don Owen.
Yes.
And
I'm glad you read that. Thank you.
And the NWA is 71 years old this year and is now owned by Billy Corgan.
Yes.
So it has had a tumultuous and storied history. There was a time, and I hope it's coming again, when the only world title out there was the NWA, the only one that was really worth it. Outside of that, everything was a promotional title.
Yeah. And when I was growing up, that was the one, again, we're going to talk about some other companies and stuff. And we've done one on belts before, but to me, that was, as a fan, when I saw the NWA belt, that was the one that I thought was the real world heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
No matter if I was watching the Memphis wrestling or as I got a little bit older and caught up with some WWF at the time, to me, it was that NWA title. That was the title belt that meant something. And so whether Funk had it or Race or Flair, or then Terry come along and had it, Dusty, the people. And I've met so many of the NWA champions, Dusty, and I kept track. It's changed a little bit through the years, of course, but I've met so many former NWA World Heavyweight Champions. And as a fan, that meant so much to me. And also as one of the wrestlers going, oh my God, this is a belt this is what you are in the business for, to win that belt, because it just meant something, to me as a young fan and also as a young man as I got older. So, I appreciate you pointing out how important that NWA heavyweight title belt was. Of course, they had tag team belts and light heavyweight belts, and they just, really monitor the entire wrestling industry as far as, getting everyone together and getting an organization together. Is a very pivotal point in professional wrestling, how they worked this, part of the wrestling program. And I'll say this, when an NWA champion, and I know we're not in a dispute between, the WWF guy or E guy, he just does it within a promotion, defends the belt. The NWA guys, those guys were on the road, 300 times a year, and they're defending it for 2 and 3 in a row, 2 or 3 nights in a row against the same opponent. Then they might go to another town, and they have to go, and they're against guys from every damn territory. So they have to wrestle one style one night when they're in Florida. They're wrestling another style when they're in Texas. They're wrestling another style when they go up to Indiana or Chicago or wherever, so they're wrestling all over the fucking United States, a different style when they get to California. But to me, that's what it meant, because as a fan, they're defending that title, traveling around. And that's not a dig towards any other belts or any other corporation or nothing like that. Just to me as a fan, that's what the NWA meant to me, that they had a belt, and the champion that carried that belt, he was the man.
Yeah. So. Well, and the word world is on that title, and the NWA champion did Europe, Asia, America, Canada. I mean, that belt went around the world.
Man, isn't that something?
That really
is. That's our number 10, and I think it's a great way to start off the show, man. So, you want me to do number 9?
Yeah, let's do number 9.
This was a personal favorite of mine. Number 9 was the first Starrcade, November 24th, 1983, Greensboro, North Carolina. Flair for the gold. We've talked about some of these matches before. I think it was closed circuit, so it kind of set off the closed circuit for pay-per-view type events, which, we'll get to some of those in a minute. But it was one of the early ones, the mothership, Starrcade, the first, big brainchild of Dusty, and they're still doing it to this day. That's great. It's a little bit different style, of course, but you had Flair and Harley Race, Piper and Valentine, and anyway, I'll let you talk about a little bit more, Jeremy. November 24th, 1983, Starrcade, baby.
Well, as far as I remember, this was the first big mega show in pro wrestling. I mean, maybe there's one out there that I don't know of, but this is like everything after this comes from Starrcade. I believe the idea for WrestleMania was coming off of Starrcade.
Yes.
They were trying to blow back on that a little bit. So, this is one of those things, like fucking Dusty was a big dreamer,
Yes.
and he didn't do anything small, I mean, he ate big meals and he had big dreams. I bet you he drank beer by the 32-ounce cup too. So
there you go.
Yeah. Dusty did not. I mean, you can say whatever you want about some of his bad habits and Dusty finishes, this, that, and the other. The man did not dream small. He did shit big or not at all. And this is one of those things, man. He had this idea. We're going to do this show and people are going to be able to watch it on closed circuit. We're going to be able to air it pretty much around the world, or, at least across the country.
Yep. And
WrestleMania, I mean, it blueprinted off of this. So an argument can be made that this day is important because without Starrcade, there is no WrestleMania.
That's what I'm thinking, and that's why we put it on this list. And there's nothing I can add to that. That's awesome, Jeremy. That's why you're the fucking professor, man. Starrcade, November 24th, 1983 from Greensboro, North Carolina. It was definitely something that changed the dates or changed the way things were seen and perceived in professional wrestling, and that's why it made our list at number 9. Excellent.
Yep. So from that one, we'll go to number 8.
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe we should move this one up the list. I don't know. Number 8 is the founding of the Four Horsemen, the premier stable in pro wrestling history.
Yes. And they are number 1 on our list in our premier stable of professional wrestling, man, of Four Horsemen. And that's the thing. I'm going to let you tell what you want. I'm just going to say it was Saturday. It was a Saturday in the fall of 1985. Sometime you was probably watching your TV, and there's some champions. I'll let Jeremy tell you about that. But one of the champions, he said, not since the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And he threw the Four Horsemen sign. He threw the four fingers, rather. It wasn't Four Horsemen sign at that point. It was just the four. It was nothing since the apocalypse of the Four Horsemen. And he drops his hand. And when Arn does that, boom, the shit gets real. Mm-hmm. There's the formation of the Four Horsemen. What do we have in the Four Horsemen, Jeremy? Who the fuck we were talking about? Tell them.
Well, the Four Horsemen was the Andersons, Ole and Arn. I don't even know. Were they using the name the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, or did that drop off the generation?
I think it had dropped off a little bit. Yeah, I think so. They had used it, but I think it had dropped off that point.
Yeah. So in kayfabe storyline-wise, Ric Flair was a cousin of the Andersons, so that's how he came in, world champion. And on top of that, they threw in the greatest sawed-off little runt heel ever in the history of in the history of our sport, Bobby.
Yes.
But on top of that, they had James J. Dillon, who might have been the most shit-sucking weasel manager of 1985 right there. That guy, you wanted to slap your own TV screen when he was on there. So the Four Horsemen was, Ole and Arn, Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard, managed by J.J. Dillon. They just were the best.
Yeah. And we could do a whole podcast, probably the Four Horsemen. When you was telling me about that just now, telling our audience about that, think about this. We've had Tully, when you said sawed off front, if you're listening to this program and you talk about heel, and he's number 1 on our list from that podcast, you could do a whole thing on a Four Horsemen. And then Arn, we've put him on 2 or 3 different lists I know of. Flair was on our list for champions, obviously. And then, of course, manager, we had our top 2 or 3, and we debated and did this. I think JJ was like number 3 on our all-time list, agreeable list with most of our fans, and I think with you and I for number 3, if I'm not mistaken on that. So we've got just on our podcast alone, we could talk about the fucking Four Horsemen. But that's the thing. You had these guys that was basically training together, traveling together, wrestling together, and they're all fucking champions, and they're in a ring together. And it's just, they lived the lifestyle. They lived and breathed that Horseman fucking lifestyle for that time period, man. Here we are talking about it, 30 years later, 35 years later. It's the greatest stable, whatever you want to call it, ever in professional wrestling, the Four Horsemen, man. And we're talking November of 85, somewhere around that time. It could have been late October, early November. But when they flashed that sign, and boom, the champions all got together. Heavyweight champion, world heavyweight champion, world tag team champion, U.S. champion. We got all the fucking gold. They are the Four Horsemen. They're number 8.
Yeah, that's and there's some ambiguity about what day the Horsemen were founded, because they were together as a group because time permitting, trying to get all 4 of those guys in an interview, they brought them up together. That could be considered the founding of the Horsemen. The day Arn flashed his fingers and used the name, that could be considered the day. So we kind of chicken shitted a little and just said fall of 1985.
There you go.
That's a big date. I don't. You're going to hear the collective sound of the entire southern part of the United States turning off their TVs at 6:05 on TV. I don't know. Was it even on at 6:05 or was it in the morning back then? It was. Okay.
It was go ahead. I'll tell you my version.
But we're going with Black Saturday, July 14th, 1984, the day Vince McMahon bought Georgia Championship Wrestling's air slot.
Yeah. And I was one of those fans in 1984 that was going to turn on my TV because it was already on anyway from, I'm going to watch the WTBS, which is the superstation, out of Atlanta, Georgia, Ted Turner's, the superstation, Channel 17. And I think it was our Channel 6 here, whatever your local cable provider, and you're ready for Georgia Championship Wrestling. You're ready for the voice, Gordon Soley, who we've talked about on here. And he's supposed to be, and he had a co-host back then, Freddie Miller. So you go to turn on your Saturday at 6:05. What do you get? You got Freddie Miller, but no Gordon Soley. The next thing you know, they're showing clips and highlights from, I think, the WWS USA show. They're showing house clips of shows from like the Northeast and from Florida and somewhere else. What the fuck is it? Where's our Georgia Championship Wrestling? Where the fuck is Tommy Wildfire? Where's Mr. Wrestler number 2? Where's Gordon Soley? Where's the Masked Superstar? Where the fuck's the real wrestling at? What the fuck is this? Arena Reports. What the fuck? Get the fuck off my TV. Who do I call? Call your local cable provider and bitch. That's what you do. It was a fucking Black Saturday for sure in 1984, Jeremy. That's that. Go ahead. You tell me. I'm going to spit out my go.
Well, so obviously, living in the West, it didn't have the same effect on me, but I like hearing you guys who were in the South when it happened, because Jim Cornette, you can hear when he talks about it too, you can hear his temper coming up. And apparently TBS got a number of phone calls literally asking, where's my Gordon Soley wrestling?
There you go.
So it was the day that the entire South went, turn that shit off.
Exactly.
Oh.
And we did.
Yeah. It did not last long. But, here's the thing. So Vince McMahon bought that time slot, put on a shitty show, and they got $1 million for it.
Damn.
Yeah. So, you could call it a mistake, but it was a mistake that netted him a shit ton of money.
There you go.
And also got him James Barnett as a consultant for a long time, and that was the guy who could run wrestling. You know? Yeah.
Yeah. We need to talk about that some other time probably.
Yep.
But, there's this typical thing of, stepping in a pile of shit and coming out smelling like a rose,
That's it, man.
So what are you going to do? It's Black Saturday, July 14th, 1984 that made our list at number 7, which is going to kind of go along with that. We kind of put this together time frame wise. It was number 6 is Ted Turner buys JCP. The date we had was November 21st, 1988 is when Crockett Promotions got bought out by Ted Turner, and thereabouts, I guess, if not immediately, changed the name to World Championship Wrestling. I'm sorry, but it's WCW. I guess it became known after that when, on a regular basis, once Turner bought out the JCP, the Jim Crockett Promotions, if you will. But anyway, go ahead, Jeremy.
Well,
number 6.
We're going to trace a lot of things back to this, but yeah, November of 1988. Ted Turner bought 65% of the controlling interest in Jim Crockett Promotions for $9 million. Yeah. This is, obviously back when wrestling was still making a lot of money.
Yeah.
But the thing was that Ted Turner had always had wrestling on his TV stations. He was always going to. The Crockett promotion had gotten into financial trouble. And so Ted Turner bought the company. The Crockett family kept a minority position. I believe they owned the other 35% of the company. There's a story I love that Vince McMahon tells about Ted Turner calling him up, hey, Vince, I'm in the wrestling business. Then he's all like, oh, that's great, Ted, but I'm in the entertainment business. And I'm thinking, you're saying this to the guy who created TBS, TNT, and CNN. You're more of an entertainment business than he is. All right, Vince. Fuck. But from this, because he buys this company, we set the stage for the first black heavyweight champion in history.
Yes.
What I would say is the temporary killing blow to the NWA when WCW leaves the NWA, that almost rendered it completely dead. You got some weird things like where in WCW, there was an NWA world champion and a WCW world champion at the same time on different people. I don't know why you wouldn't just give both belts to one guy and lend legitimacy that way. Yeah. A lot of things grow out of this. And, the WCW would stay in the NWA until 1993. So about 5 years.
Well, the one thing I want to say real quickly is Ted Turner was always going to have wrestling on his, TV stations. And that's what we went back to the other, all these things tying together. The way, of course, we're talking about professional wrestling here. We haven't even gotten into what we're going to get into because you already used that fucking E word once. We're going to end up using it several times. You maybe heard me say it for the first time today or hear me say it. But yeah, this when Turner buys that, and there's a lot of changes, a lot of things happen. And also another thing that happened, just from the boys' perspective, a lot of guys, what I won't say a lot, I'll say this. Several people started getting contracts at that point, guaranteed money, and that changed wrestling too. So that's a little bit something behind the scenes that they started handing out contracts. And with a contract, a lot of things, I'm not going a big rant, but I'm just going to tell you, a lot of things change when people get a contract. You have to work X amount of days. Well, if you're not fucking scheduled, you don't show up. Or if you're guaranteed that money, and I'm not saying it happens because it can be in any sport. I'm just saying sometimes you're like, you know what, I'm just going to take a fucking day off, or I'm going to take a match off, and you're not going to perform because your money's there. Now, I don't want to discredit anyone, nothing like that. I'm not saying it happened or it didn't happen. Just a lot of things can change, as opposed to saying, you know what, if I go out here and bust my ass and put on a good show tonight and I get paid off that house, I'm going to try even harder, and I want to have the best match in the card. So it can work both ways. But, those contracts coming in professional wrestling with Turner handing out, Turner Broadcasting Systems, believe me, I got a couple from FedEx every couple of weeks, and I miss them, believe me. I'm just saying, Ted Turner's checks don't bounce. And when these guys are out there busting ass on the road and stuff, and they start getting guaranteed money, that changes things in professional wrestling too. So that's another important thing, because that comes up, whether you're independent contractors or whether you're employee, and that's a whole nother, podcast probably, but that's why it's so important that in November of 1988, when Turner buys out Crockett, just a lot of fucking things changed in the world of professional wrestling. Did I about sum it up, Jeremy?
I believe so. I mean,
okay, good.
Yeah, because that did really change how wrestling was. I mean, this was a period. This was a period for wrestling that was kind of odd anyways, because shortly after this happens, WCCW folds into, USWA with the AWA. I mean, this was a tumultuous time in pro wrestling, and this really set the stage for WCW versus WWF.
Yeah.
I mean, because they were going to be the last two standing. Not terribly long. 13 years isn't terribly long after. Yeah.
Nope. It's all for that time period, that cycle of wrestling we've talked about before. Let's just take a quick plug here real quick for our YouTube channel. How about that?
Yeah, fantastic.
Let me give us a rundown, number 10 through number 6, if you don't care, and I'm going to give us a quick plug. Number 10, on episode 45, the important dates in pro wrestling. We got the formation of the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance, back in 1948, the first Starrcade back in 1983, the Four Horsemen in 1985, Black Saturday that you just heard about in 1984, and in 1988, Turner buys JCP, Jim Crockett Promotions, and that's number 6. And real quickly, just a shout out to Tex over there in the boiler room. He's been busy putting out some really good YouTube videos. You can visit the Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze YouTube channel at tinyurl.com/BBBB video. How's that, Jeremy?
That's fantastic. And I hadn't checked on our YouTube page in a couple days. It looks like Tex has put up a little tribute to Sonny.
Yes, Sonny went up this week, and I shouted it out a couple of times, man. She's hot, smoking hot. Mm-hmm. We've hit over 4,500 subscribers to our channel at the tinyurl.com BBBB video. But not only that, the toughest guys, legit badasses, Paul Orndorff has like 156,000 views. Ming or Haku, he has like 105,000 views now. Gene LaBelle has like 60,000 fucking views, man. I mean, it's great. And then the girls, I put up the last 3. I put up your girl, Missy Hyatt, man.
Oh, Missy Hyatt.
She's getting about 500, I think. I could be wrong. And then Sonny just went up this week as well, and she's already got a few hundred. So give those things a view. And especially, you hear Jeremy, he does a good job. Well, I'll let Jeremy tell you how Tex does it. But the thing about it is, when you like the video and you subscribe to it, it helps the show out. We appreciate that very much. But also that last minute, Tex always puts something like a minute with Sonny, and you're like, ooh, and for 60 seconds, guys, you can just let your mind wander.
Yeah, well, see, Tex has a lot of free time since we don't actually let him have a key to get out of the boiler room.
And how the fuck did he get that phone at one time? I don't ever know.
I don't know. I had the contractors go in and rip that line out, so that shouldn't be happening again. I'm just, but Tex, what he does is, he takes segments of the show, and at some point, I'm sure we're going to have to start doing YouTube only bits for, specifically for that page. But what Tex does is he takes parts of the show, slices them up, so that way, like when we do a top 10, I'll take like whatever the number is, and he'll add in context and videos and things, and in a time or two, he's called me on some bullshit that I've stated as a fact that I probably shouldn't have, or I didn't know exactly what I was talking about. But he puts it in context. I mean, me and Bobby record this. I listen to it a couple more times when I edit, and then I'm usually done with it. But when Tex puts out a video, because of the way he brings in context and outside information and things to highlight what we talk about, it's actually entertaining for me to go back and watch those again.
Yes,
so it's definitely worth checking out. Yeah.
Yep, that's good. That's good, man. That's good. Thank you, Tex, very much. We'll have you some lunch served down in the boiler room shortly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get ready to get into our top 5, Jeremy, if you don't care. And, man, I'm going to tell you, this number 5, as we lead up to it, I just have a little bit of a story, and I'll let you introduce it, then I'll tell you my story, then we'll talk about the show itself. How's that?
Fantastic. So what we're going to talk about here is a family who really put their money where their mouth was. Vince McMahon and Linda McMahon went into Hawk to do this. It's WrestleMania 1. I believe, let me see here. What day was that? I lost it.
March 31st, 1985.
Yeah, at Madison Square Garden, New York City. It was the first wrestling pay-per-view ever. It was only available in some areas because pay-per-view was not yet what it would become in a few years. It was also offered in closed circuit at different venues. This was a big deal. I mean, it had big names like Mr. T, just, celebrities. Cyndi Lauper was involved. I mean, it was a big
Liberace.
Liberace. That man knew how to carry a candelabra.
I don't know how to carry a candelabra, but I know how to carry a candelabra. Anyway, no, the thing about, I wrote about that in my second book. I kicked out onto the educational wrestler. I got a story called Train Ride. And then I'm coming back from Baltimore, Maryland on March the 15th, 1985. And the thing I remember about this is the 2 weeks to the show, prior to the show, I remember all the hype and all the build up to that first Mania. I was wanting to be a wrestler so bad, but obviously I wasn't for another few years, but I just wanted to be, and I was like, this event is going to be taking place. It really just changed the way the promotional packages that's put by that. I saw people on, morning TV shows, late night TV shows, people, your Hulk Hogan's, your Orndorffs, your Mr. T's, your Pipers, your Cyndi Laupers, they're all doing these promos and your celebrities. We've already mentioned a couple, all that. And I'm on that train and I'm thinking, oh man, I want to be a part of that one day in some way, professional wrestling. And I still haven't used the E word, as you noticed, but anyway, there was another guy on the train ride. He was with his mom, but he's close to my age. And we was just talking about that, not the whole train ride, but just kind of like what me and Jeremy's talking about on our show. Just two fans, man. And then when it came out a couple weeks later, of course, I didn't have it on pay-per-view. I had to wait, next day and hear about it and read about it. And then, of course, magazines come out. Then your programs come out, your whatever, the Monday night show and maybe the following week. But there was enough fucking publicity, man. The USA Today newspaper, man, it was just one of those things that just changed the fucking face of wrestling. But I know with me, that whole experience of that first WrestleMania, the excitement, you can hear it when I'm telling the story, man, it just was there for that show. And it just changed the world of professional wrestling with the media coverage. Jeremy's already mentioned the pay-per-views, the way they're done and how they reach people around the world. That fucking March 31st, 1985, WrestleMania 1, that was a very important date in professional wrestling, in my opinion, and I guess the professor's opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Well, this revolutionized pro wrestling. If it started with Starrcade or not, doesn't really matter. Vince McMahon really used pay-per-view to dominate pro wrestling. It became, eventually got to the point where it was every month, which is a little much, but when it started off just a few shows throughout the year, it was fantastic because they really were big event watches.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, anyway, any more things about number 5, WrestleMania 1?
Gene Okerlund sang the Star Spangled Banner at the beginning of the show because the singer didn't show up to do it. The Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov won the tag titles from Mike Rotunda and Barry Windham.
Okay.
But, of course, they had to cheat to do it. Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat.
There you go.
Yeah. Mr. T was there and he pitied the fool. Yeah, it was just a big deal. And I forgot that Volkov and Sheik ever held the tag titles. Completely forgot that.
Yeah, and of course you had a big main event blow off there. So anyway, if you haven't watched it, go back and fucking watch it. If you gave some spoiler alert, I don't know where the fuck you've been at for the last 35 years. I don't know. So anyway, WrestleMania 1, March 31st, 85 comes in as an important date. Let's move on to number 4 because things are starting to heat up a little bit here. Number 4 on one of Turner's stations. Nitro debuts from the Mall of America, September 4th, 1995. And as Nitro comes on, it's the kickoff of the Monday Night Wars, man. Go, Jeremy, is all I can tell you, because we could talk about this forever, too. How it changed when Turner says, I'm a wrestling. Canell says, well, thank you, but I'm this kind of company. Well, here comes wrestling, September 4th of 85, and now there's some competition out there against Raw.
Well, to believe the story as it is told to us, somebody asked Eric Bischoff, what do we need to do to really take the fight to WWF? What do we need to do to compete? And keep in mind, WCW at this point was a distant second place.
Yes.
It was a distant second place. And Eric Bischoff tells, I guess it would be Turner, he tells Turner, put me on against them on Monday nights, which sounds like a bafflingly stupid thing to do. But they did it, and for 82 weeks, they kicked the shit out of the WWF. And I don't know if anybody ever saw that coming, but this was September 4th, 1995 was the first episode of Nitro to air.
Yeah.
Up against the WWF's Monday Night Raw. That's a big deal because the Monday Night Wars grew out of this.
Yeah.
WCW overtaking WWF as the premier wrestling company in the country grows out of this. Eric Bischoff's ego ballooned up 10 sizes of its own gigantic size already because of this show. Bobby, you got anything to add?
Oh, man, we could just go on and on about, matches that took place and this and that, but no, the main thing is I don't think anyone saw it coming that, this little Southern wrestling company, all of a sudden now is giving the WWF at the time competition. And that makes things, people are competing for contracts. People are competing for eyes on the fucking TV tube. That's kind of one of those things where, we're no longer a wrestling company. We're a fucking television company comes in there and we're competing. And, the only thing I'm going to say is that, cause I'm not going to ramble about the matches and that, 'cause we got some other stuff to discuss on down the line here about some of that. But I was fortunate enough to be a part of that. I was there under contract with Turner Sports for 3 years. And, I was at a lot of those Nitros, whether I was backstage, I got to be on a couple of those. I was at so many of them. I was at one of the very first ones in Knoxville. It was shortly after Smoky Mountain shut down. I was like, I went down, talked to him, hung out in the back, and you just saw something coming. But at that point, I'll say this, to show you that people didn't think it's coming in Knoxville, I think they had less than 500 people, paid attendance, but that the cable company sent out fucking free tickets to 20,000 people or something. You can fact check, I don't know how many, maybe 10,000 to fill up the arena for this new show. And the next thing you know, they're fucking selling out. At first they go from giving out tickets like in Knoxville, for example, and I'm sure he did other places around the country, giving out tickets to get asses in the seats for this new Monday Nitro, to where they went to the bigger arena like Thompson Bowling Arena in Knoxville, to they're fucking selling it out, within a year or so. They don't have to give you more fucking tickets away, and then they're doing a monthly pay-per-view based off of that. I mean, it was just it was the Monday Night Wars, and what it created was so much off that you had 2 shows on Monday. I know, 98, I've said this before, 5 out of the 10 top TV cable shows with professional wrestling. We're talking about Raw and Nitro here. They had Thunder, and SmackDown came out after that. Then you had your Saturday, your superstars. Then you had your Worldwide, and you also had your Saturday night. That's 7 fucking programs right there, and 5 of those in the top 10 of what people are watching in the United States of America, man. And on those Monday nights, people were fucking glued to the fucking TV set, and they was either watching Monday Night Raw, or they was watching Monday Nitro, or they was flipping a fucking channel between the two. So anyway, that was September 4th, 1995, Nitro debuts, kicking off the Monday Night Wars, and boom, there's that, Jeremy.
Yeah, that was a huge deal. Everything that grew out of the Monday Night Wars is everything you think of now when you think of the glory days of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things you can see now, you get some idea when the WWF doesn't have competition, they rest on their laurels. When they've got competition, they get all sorts of creative and interesting. That era proved it because the WWF back then, before Nitro became a big deal, kind of sucked pretty badly.
Yeah.
If you go back and think about it, it was a low point in their creative history. And you just look at the last 20 years to see what they've done without any direct competition, rested on their laurels again.
Yeah.
So there you go. We can all thank Eric Bischoff for making. Okay, that's enough of that.
Yeah. Hey, how about this? Let's get this in before we get to our top three. Jeremy,
yes.
How about Prime? Do you like Amazon Prime?
I love Amazon Prime.
Right.
Bobby, my wife and I split up and I had to move into a different living facility. Okay. And I used Amazon Prime to buy most of my furniture.
There you go.
Yeah.
And if you are a listener of this show, you can try Prime for free for 30 days. You can get a trial. Just go to tinyurl.com/BB, try Prime. Put it in there. It's not going to cost you a dime. Just give it a trial, a 30-day trial. See if you like it, because I guarantee it you'll like it. Also, the show gets a little bit of kickback out of it on Jeremy's end, and we want to get him some fucking furniture, man. Get him a new futon. He might have a girl coming over, man. Get him a big lazy boy or something. I don't know. But we get a small kickback. Just use the tinyurl.com/BB, try Prime. They've got a lot of streaming on there, a streaming service. You can get shipping. Now they've got in some select areas overnight fucking free shipping, next day fucking free shipping if you order something. I order movies and I order socks. If I order something else, I'll let you know. But anyway, stay out of my fucking underwear drawer, people, and just go to tinyurl.com/BB, try Prime, and help Jeremy get some fucking furniture.
That's right.
All I can tell you.
Well, also, for anybody who knows me, I love horror movies, and the cheaper the better. That's really how I feel about it. I have come across some gems hiding out on Amazon Prime in their free to watch area where you don't have to buy them; they're included with your subscription. One of my favorites, it's called "I Had a Bloody Good Time at House Harker." I've interviewed one of the creators. It's about the descendants of the Harkers from Dracula having to fight a vampire again in the modern era when they're a bunch of losers in their hometown.
Wow.
Fucking hilarious movie. I also discovered this thing called Transylvania TV. It's a Muppet show, basically, about these monsters that run a TV station in the Carpathian Mountains in Transylvania. It is funny. It's not for kids. Do not let the puppets fool you. Do not watch this with your children, but do watch it because it is a damn funny show. It's available on there as well.
I will have to check it out. Yeah. I've already got my Prime, but if you don't, just use tinyurl.com/BB, try Prime, get your 30-day trial free, folks, and help kick back on some show a little bit. With that said, we're going to move into our top three. I'm going to let Jeremy talk a little bit about this because he's got a good thing about it, how we tied this together. I'm going to announce it. I'll let Jeremy fill it in. It was July 7th, 1996 is what we kind of were shooting for on a date, but there's a little bit of backstory to that, and that is the Outsiders come on WCW, World Championship Wrestling. There's an NWA formation. I'll let Jeremy go over there. Outsiders, NWO, go, Jeremy.
All right. Well, so leading up to this event, this was Bash at the Beach, July 7th, 1996. It was supposed to be 3 WCW guys versus 3 NWO, but they were just calling them Outsiders at the time, I believe. Who we knew was Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, but they had a third mystery partner coming. And I believe Team WCW was Sting, Macho Man, and Hogan, right?
I think so.
Yeah. But Hogan no-showed too. So we have Nash and Hall versus Sting and Mach. And, things are going pretty bad for our heroes from WCW. And then here comes Hulk Hogan. He's here to save the day, right? And no, he gets to the ring, he leg drops Macho Man and goes heel. July 7, 1996, the NWO is formed, Hogan, Nash, Hall, and for the first time in 20 some odd years, Hulk Hogan is a villain. And a bigger villain had never been seen at this moment. You could actually watch the crowd shit their pants when this happened.
Man. So we go from one of the WrestleManias, Hulk Hogan, the biggest babyface in the history of fucking professional wrestling ever, changed the face of fucking professional wrestling on the WrestleMania we just previously spoke about. And now here comes all the little fucking Hulkamaniacs taking your fucking vitamins, believing in this guy for 25 fucking years or whatever. And you're sitting there watching, you're thinking he's going to come down and save the day for the WWF or for the guy, whatever, save WCW, we should say, from WWF. And here he comes, Hulk Hogan. Hollywood Hogan turns fucking heel, man, changes colors, from the fucking, red and yellow. And now he's all black and it's one of those things. Hulk Hogan turning heel, it just broke all those fucking Hulkamaniacs' little fucking hearts. And I'm going to tell you, the creative genius behind that, someone telling, hey, this is just a suggestion. You think you're over now and you really want to fucking get over? Turn fucking heel. And you know who was hardly responsible for that besides Hulk Hogan? It took the convincing and the creative mind and the tremendous fucking brain power of Kevin Sullivan. There you go. Kevin Sullivan helped put this shit together, folks. And man, he had a great brain, great mind for the wrestling business. And if it took anyone to convince Hogan, no, you think you're a fucking babyface, wait till you turn heel. And man, did things fucking change after July 7th, 1996, Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
big deal, huge deal. I don't know that there's ever been a heel turn bigger than that. I don't see how there could be.
I don't see how it could be either. I think you're right.
Yeah, and the other thing is the NWO was probably the first thing that really made wrestling cool. You know what I mean? It's like, cause you saw a few people like wear a wrestling t-shirt here and there, but when the NWO hit, you saw everybody wearing an NWO shirt. Yeah. Everywhere you went, you saw that goddamn NWO logo on everything.
You sure did, man. You sure did.
Yeah.
Merchandise. Merch.
Well, that's the thing. It kind of turned wrestling into a merch company more than a wrestling company.
Yeah, and that goes back to what we said previously, too. There again, it takes the competition. The WWF has to fucking do something because, when one of their biggest stars, biggest baby face in the history of the business is over there on their fucking, their company, and it's a new world order. I mean, it's a fucking, think about that. That's apocalyptic right there. New world fucking order, man. And them guys, hey, it makes competition, the merchandise. These guys, you talk about getting over, they just fucking got over. So, man, that Bash at the Beach of 96, July 7th, 96, I don't think there could have been a bigger baby face in the business, and there couldn't have been a bigger heel turn in the business. And you're talking about the same person. That's Hulk Hogan doing that. That's a great fucking number 3. It kind of makes me wonder where we're going with number 2 and 1, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Well, number 2, okay, so number 2 actually happened during a period where I had quit watching wrestling. I get to work one Tuesday morning and I hear, holy shit, did you watch Nitro last night? And I'm, no. He goes, Shane McMahon was on Nitro last night.
Yeah, big date here. March 26, 2001. I was actually one of those fucking people. I was still watching then. I was still wrestling pretty much. I just took an after school job doing some things back in 2001. But anyway, I had just come off the road of 10 years of wrestling from 91 through 2001. And I was sitting there watching my TV, and I'm watching Nitro, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Because, Vince McMahon had bought, I guess, the WCW for pennies on a dollar, and you're going, what the fuck? And then Shane McMahon's on there saying, I bought, the kayfabe thing, the Nitro kayfabe. I bought fucking Nitro, and I'm now the owner or whatever. You're like, oh shit, there's no more competition. You can go back to what we talked about earlier, the Monday Night Wars, and how all this, creative mind of Eric Bischoff saying this, and the ego blasting out, and them kicking her ass for all these weeks and stuff. And then finally, in the end, who comes out? Vince fucking Kitty McMahon. He wins the war. He buys the fucking competition. That's a big fucking moment in professional wrestling, because once again, you didn't beat the competition. You killed them, you crushed them, and you bought them out. Like, you know what? Now, if a couple of you motherfuckers want to come over here and get on our program, you're welcome to, because I'm the only game in town, cocksuckers. Jump on board. You know? But there it is with Shane coming on the kayfabe. Everyone, hey, I bought fucking Nitro, and Anyway, that's my rant because I want to get to number one, but you go ahead and fill me in anything else you want to about number two before we jump to number one.
Oh, it was such a big deal. I mean, yeah, they bought WCW. Here's so many things about this just kind of irk me. So at the time, AOL had just bought Time Warner. AOL did not want any wrestling on their TV anymore. So that means no wrestling on any Turner channel anymore. Eric Bischoff was trying to buy WCW when he was told, hey, by the way, you don't have a TV contract, so you're just buying the contracted wrestlers and no TV time or anything.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, that's not going to work. Vince McMahon actually buys WCW. If I remember correctly, he buys it on a payment plan. So he buys them with their own money.
Oh shit.
if I remember correctly, he basically buys them with their own money. So, he runs their product. He gets all the contracts and fire whoever the fuck he wants. All this shit. And, and the fans, we were left in a 20-year glut with no real competition. Well, not quite 20 years. I mean, ROH and some other stuff is kind of crested and fallen, and TNA had a good couple months here and there, but it really was McMahon all the time, period. Yep. And that changed everything again. I mean, we should have actually had a special mention for the day that VKM bought his company from his dad, because that was the day that wrestling changed permanently. He literally looked around and he said, okay, well, I'm going to shit on the old way of doing everything. And everything's going my way from now on, kids.
Yeah. Because back in the day at WWF was a part of the NWA where we started our show at, and then it goes to McMahon to where he says, I'm going to do it my way kind of thing. And along the way, that's a great, we should have maybe brought that date up when Vincent and Kenny McMahon bought the company from his dad, because it's going to take us to our number one. Because when you're the king, we're going to call this day number one, Jeremy. What is number one? Because I'm getting ready to fixing to go off here in a minute.
All right. So number one, and we even came up with a title for it.
Yeah.
It's the day that kayfabe died. February 10th. Oh, no, that was the day the article came out. February 10th, 1989. Bobby, tell them what happened that day.
Okay, so about 30 years ago or so, McMahon says that pro wrestling, Vince McMahon says, Vince says wrestling is entertainment. Anyway, from the New York Times, this is an article from David Fixenpan from Deadspin Magazine, because I hate to say that word. 30 years ago, the WWE admitted it wasn't a sport because they was trying to dodge regulation. So this is from New York Times, February 10th, 1980. Now it can be told those pro wrestlers are just having fun. The article centered around how spokesman for the World Wrestling Federation had testified before the New Jersey State Senate that pro wrestling was strictly a performance instead of competition, with the goal of deregulating wrestling in the state, blah, 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 blah. And as we know, they didn't want to pay taxes on this, and they want to pay taxes on that. And they wanted to be deregulated, that we have skilled athletes. But you know what? We're also like the Harlem Globetrotters. We're just providing Jeremy, please.
The word he keeps stumbling over here is entertainment.
Yes, we are here to entertain you, and that's what the WWF done probably better than anything other than anyone else in the world. When the World Wrestling Federation, and there's a date on that, because you can go up and look all your top fucking 50 dates in wrestling. You can go with Jeremy, start a show about WWF or WWE every time you look up something, and it all comes down to they've taken over the fucking world. They went from Federation to World Wrestling. Folks, it's right there in the fucking title. Entertainment. There, Jeremy, I said it.
Yeah.
I think I just threw up a little bit in my mouth.
Yeah, shit. We're probably gonna have to call him an ambulance at this rate.
Oh God, don't talk like that.
Yeah, Bobby. I kind of need you to sit down and maybe take a breath, because you're getting a little spun out here, little buddy.
Well, it's also getting close to fucking beer 30 on my time.
Oh yeah.
I might have to have a beer or two after that, because that was hard for me to spit out. But I got it out there, man, and I think our number one, the day kayfabe died, that's what we called it. But when Vince said, hey, we're just entertainment, and that's something people knew for years, and you still know it now. But you know what I hope people do? I hope people still watch professional wrestling, and I don't care who you get it from. I hope you watch it and are a fan of it. I hope you're a fan of this fucking show, this podcast, Professor Jeremy Vilmur. I got a friend named Jeremy Villers too. Jeremy Vilmur, the professor over there. You have brought us some great facts to this show. I appreciate you. I appreciate the Silver Scorpion. I appreciate everyone that's a fan of professional wrestling. But when it's all said and done, at the end of the night, I hope everyone has at least been entertained.
Oh, are you not entertained?
I don't know.
You know what they should have done, man? Dr. D. David Schultz should have been in that trial room when they admitted that, because he would have just gone over and John Stossel them all in the head, you know?
Oh, yeah. Then it wouldn't have this day wouldn't have came because, you know, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
30 years later.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I think we had a good show. I hope you like this. Guys, if you're out there, Nate's going to come on and give us a little closing, but I'm going to tell you, go follow Jeremy on Twitter at the Geekish Cast. Follow me at Bobby Blaze 744. Follow our joint account at Bell to Bell Blaze on Twitter. Go visit the YouTube channel, the Bell to Bell Blaze podcast channel. There's a Facebook group out there. Just whatever. You know what? Give us some feedback. Use the hashtag BBBB. Give us your top fucking 10. You know, this came off a huge list, man, that Jeremy and I start working with. Some things get more credit than others, and we just start going with it, run with it. But we do want to hear back from the fans. We've mentioned reviews earlier, and I'm sitting there telling you right now, if you want to hit us up on Twitter saying, Bobby, that was a great number one, that's fine. If you say, what? Bobby, your number one sucked. Jeremy, your number one sucked. I think this is number one. You know what? I'd like to hear about it. I really would, because that gives us more topics. We've probably come up with 3 more podcasts based off this one podcast that we've just spoken about, things that we can talk about. And we get a lot of that from our listeners and our fans, and we appreciate it. And Jeremy, I'm going to shut up and let you finish this up, brother.
Well, it's no, that's absolutely true. You know, we do hope that you come to us and at least walk away entertained. You know, guys, if you disagree with us, feel free to say so, because we are very responsive to our Twitter accounts and everything. So you disagree, you want to call us shit sucking heels, whatever you want to do, let us know. We'll respond. We're not afraid, you know. And fuck it, you know what? I've been wrong a lot. I've probably been wrong more this morning than most other people will be all day. So, you know.
Damn.
Yeah, it's okay. I am not afraid. It does not bother me. Bobby, hey, thank you for joining me. It's always fun when we get together and record these shows. You know, thank you to everybody, all our fans at home, for listening. We do appreciate that. Tex, we'll get some food and water down to you pretty quickly here, so just hang in. You're going to be okay. You know, everybody, it's been a pleasure to have you, but it's been your pleasure to listen this week to Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Bell with Bobby Blaze. You can follow the show on Twitter at Bell to Bell Blaze. You can also follow Bobby on Twitter at BobbyBlaze744 and Jeremy on Twitter at The Geekish Cast. To purchase one of Bobby's books, you can visit tinyurl.com/blazebook1 to purchase Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots, Will Travel. And you can visit tinyurl.com/blazebook2 to get I Kicked Out on 2, The Education of a Wrestler. To donate to the show's podcast hosting fees, you can visit gofundme.com/Bell to Bell podcast hosting fees. Be sure to include a hyphen in every word in Bell to Bell podcast hosting fees. If you follow and listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. Be sure to share the show with any wrestling fan you may know, and get on the Facebook page where you can keep up with Bell to Bell fans just like you. Again, thanks for listening to the program, and look for the show again next time.